welcome everyone to this gathering where we dedicate ourselves to experience the realization of oneness, to experience the realization of spiritual awakening, the realization of truth. A time when we set aside the circumstances of the moment, our learning experiences, and just dwell in the limitless reality of the divine. And so I light this candle representing the Christ light, the Christ spirit that lives in us all.
I was at an art show and I'm taking a break from selling our things, and so I take a little walk, and there's this other artist, and he's we just start talking, and he goes, he says, you know, the strangest thing, he says, he came from South, and he says, I stopped into Tennessee in a bathroom, and written on the wall was, what is reality and why won't it leave me alone in the bathroom? And I go, hey, there's a song in that. So I wrote the song once, and I lost it. And so I couldn't find it, and so then I rewrote it, and this is how it turned out. That's how I arrived here, and I cried, what is reality? Why won't it leave me alone? Dreamers don't fit with school teachers' rules. Sometimes she was downright cruel. only now I know how we got through that form of what is reality. Why won't it leave me alone? How about another one? Dream or slow dream, reality's fast. Sometimes it gets my will. I still live in a dreamer's world. I'm still glad that I gave it a whirl. What is reality? Why won't it leave me alone? All my life I've been caught in between reality and living the dream, while rowing my boat gently down the stream. Help me sing it a little bit. What is reality? Why won't it leave me alone? What is reality? I see now I made up my own. What is reality? Why don't you make up your own? Louis!
Do you see now that reality is something you can play with? Maybe. So it's interesting how this series of talks has so much coherence in it. There's so many like repetitions of things. It's kind of like a geometric design, because we're learning what is the unity teaching as a study of truth. Well, first of all, to understand your nature, that you are divine. Second of all, to understand the nature of the rest of reality, besides yourself, and then what to do with it. The practice, that's why we call unity is practical Christianity. And then what's the result? To praise the result. And so that theme is just built into this journey we're on. And what we're looking at in terms of last week was, once you start the study of truth, you become a new person. You get a new identity. The things that you thought you knew about yourself shift. And you realize that you're free from the past. Your conditioning that's in your subconscious mind can be transformed, cleansed, released. You can reprogram yourself. You can become and express the unlimited spiritual divine identity that you are. Okay, so enough of that. All right. But now we're on to a new reality. So, you know, the last piece of this string of beads that creates a logic that leads us to a mountaintop experience just clicked into place for me this morning. Okay, so how many of you have seen the movie what the bleep do we know? And then its sequel, Down the Rabbit Hole. Okay, so what does that have to do with spirituality? Let me just give a brief recap, because it's mind-blowing. So there was an experiment done right around the 1900 to try to observe whether an atom can penetrate a barrier and reach the other side. And what they discovered was, depending on who was watching and what their expectation was, that's what the atom did. And so the observer principle was discovered. And with that, the observer principle, meaning whoever the observer is of the phenomenon, whatever the observation is, it affects the phenomenon. What does that say? The universe is conscious. Anything is possible. There is no bottom line about what is and is not possible, how things do and do not behave in the physical world, in the realm of physics, the physical universe. Now, some people can lose their mind over this insight, if you really grasp it. Because, what do you mean there's no bottom line? That is the void that is mentioned in the Eastern religions. When you suddenly realize that your beliefs actually are an expectation of what you're going to see. And so if you can let go of your beliefs, dispense with all the expectations of your perceptual process, you're kind of left with nothing but despair. It's very desperate. It's a very desperate situation to have no blinders on, to have no expectation, to have no beliefs, to have no, if it's even possible. And I once said in a conversation with you, Craig, do you remember this? You were talking about beliefs. And I said, I don't think it's possible to think without beliefs. To think rationally. That's possible. But that could be true. But the point is to be conscious and as much as you possibly can, drop away the beliefs that you carry, which constitute expectations in your perceptual process, leaves you with void, nothing. So does that mean that God is nothing? That the cosmos is nothing? That reality is no thing? In a sense, yes, but it also means that because of the observer principle, it is what you expect it to be. So you create your own reality. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, what we were saying in Unity is that since you do create your own reality, let's create the highest vibratory reality we can, which is what? Love. 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 We get to say that it's love. And we are becoming more and more awakened to what love actually means. So I used to hang out with this Reverend Alan White, Unity minister, back in Tacoma Park, Maryland. He was an African-American man who toured as a solo piano player when he was a child. He was a prodigy. And then he became a Unity minister. He's a brilliant guy. And he says, he would always preach this: I will manifest it when I realize it. And when I realize it is when it becomes real in my eyes. How many of you have heard me say that before? Isn't it wonderful when it becomes real in your eyes, you realize it, and then it manifests. So true. So what is real to you? What do you think is possible in the reality that you live in? While you ponder that, I want to share a little bit more about music, some music that reveals this. We have a very music top-heavy service today, so I didn't want to add yet another song, but But the song came into my heart. You know that song, I Believe I Can Fly by R. Kelly? I had quite a journey, a nice journey with that song. First of all, back in the late 90s, when I was still in DC, this gal named Jane Simmons, she's now married to Gary Simmons, who wrote the book about conflict resolution for unity. He's a PhD. Well, at that time, she was a Canadian woman who was coordinating youth activities for the eastern region of Unity. And she had a great big training that I went to. A lot of people came for youth education. And the first night, she played a commercial recording of I Believe I Can Fly, and just got a bunch of us to come up and stand and sing it, and it seemed like we were singing it. And she said, you can do this in your church. Just have the kids stand up and sing along with a commercial recording that they love, and you've got it. You don't have to, you know, a lot of people don't have musical genius directors like we have. So that was a shortcut for them, and I was so impressed. I hadn't really heard the song before. I was so impressed with how devotional it sounded. Can you recall that? It has violins, it has a chorus in the background, and it just has this feeling of stillness and meditative reverence to it. So then I happened to get a job teaching pre-kindergarten in an inner city daycare center in DC. And this was a place that had people from very poor neighborhoods. What we now call war zone neighborhoods. Kids who were traumatized before they even went to kindergarten by the threat of danger and violence that they lived in. And so these little kids, when I suggested, why don't we do I Believe I Can Fly for our opening circle, they were thrilled. And you know, the first line of that song is, I used to think that I could not go on, that life was nothing but an awful song. And they resonated, those 5-year-olds resonated with those feelings. They carried that. And this song helped them to process it and heal it and give them a sense of possibility, because it is a sacred song that says, if I can see it, then I can be it. If I just believe it, there's nothing to it. And it also says, if I can see it, then I can do it. If I just believe it, there's nothing to it. Repeats that frame. I thought it was so wonderful, just magnificent to bring into the secular arena of education where children were traumatized. This song of hope and transformation. I believe they used to love to have me sit in the circle while they ran around in a circle flapping their arms. I believe I can fly. And it says it over and over. It was so cute. So we also find this teaching about possibility interesting in the Hindu religion. And that's another part of the symmetry of this unit we're doing, because each talk sort of borrows on a different mainstream religion. Like next week when we talk about a new way, well, Buddhism is teaching a sevenfold way, a path, a practice. And this is a new reality. Well, Hinduism teaches about the pitfalls of getting lost in the Maya. Have you heard this before? So I just want to visit the actual real specified information from the sacred Hindu texts, which I'm using is the Upanishads. Have you heard of that? The Upanishads, is ancient sacred Hindu texts. The Upanishads describe the universe and the human experience as an interplay of eternal unchanging principles, consciousness, and the temporary changing material world. The Upanishads refer to, the former manifests itself as Atman. Atman, you've heard that term? The Atman, which means the soul or the sacred self. And the latter, temporary, manifests itself as Maya, what they call Maya. The Upanishads refer to the knowledge of Atman as true knowledge, and the knowledge of Maya as not true true knowledge. And then in the Upanishads, Maya is the perceived changing reality, and it coexists with Brahman, which is the hidden true reality. Brahman. That's what we study in Unity, Brahman, the hidden true reality. Maya, or illusion, is an important idea in the Upanishads because the texts assert that in the human pursuit of blissful and liberating self-knowledge, it is Maya which obscures, confuses, and distracts an individual. Now, where do we find this in our own Christianity? In the very heart of the Gospels. Okay. Remember how Nicodemus visited Jesus by night? And what did Jesus tell him? You have to be born again. That's a new reality. He says, there was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews. The same came to Jesus by night and said to him, Rabbi, we know that thou art a teacher come from God, and no man can do these miracles that thou doest, except God be with him. Jesus answered and said to him, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. Nicodemus said to him, how can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter the second time into his mother's womb and be born? And Jesus said, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born of water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God. You must be born again. That is the new reality that we are speaking of. But it's not like a final new reality that comes and then you're stuck in that new reality forevermore. It's a constant, ongoing unfoldment of a deeper and deeper appreciation of what is possible in this so-called void when we use our power to create a reality of love. I had a friend who was a psychiatrist, and he decided to go to India and study with a guru. And when he came back, all he would do was sit in a room in a lotus position in a white robe and meditate. He didn't want to do counseling, but he would answer questions. And I was at a time in my life when I had a broken heart. A romance had failed, and I was devastated. I was in a lot of heartache and pain. And I thought maybe he can help me. And so I wanted to ask him, what is love that it hurts you so much? And so I went to I arranged for an audience with him. And I went into his space where he sat in front of a candle in a white robe with his legs folded, and I said, what is love? And he actually sang a little tune. He said, you ask me what love is, and I don't know what to do. And he just kind of went on like a little folk singer, and then he was quiet. And he said, love is seeing clearly. That kind of whooshed away my pain. And then I said, what is pain? And he said, pain is not seeing clearly. So is this perception that we work on? I mean, the most important work we do in our spiritual growth is working on our perception, how we perceive things. Because what we behold is what we create. Especially like with children, when you reward the behavior that they exhibit that you want, it grows. And when you ignore the behavior that they exhibit that you don't want, it diminishes. We do the exact opposite. We tend to punish the behavior we don't want, and that way it brings attention to it and it feeds it. But what we're looking to do is look for the good. Look for the Christ. Adjust our perception to see God in the midst of everything. To behold the divine. And thereby be in it. Be a part of it. Experience it. Create it and call it forth. Because what you see is what you call forth, what you attract, what you create. There is a book by Brian Weiss, who is a psychologist or psychiatrist, I forget which, who stumbled upon past life recollections with his clients. And he ended up going into past life regression as a big study on his part. He's part of the whole New Age movement. Many of you know Brian Weiss. Yeah, he's got a lot of books. So one of his books is called Only Love is Real. And this he derived out of a client who had a past life as a partner in a couple relationship with a person. It was a woman and a man, and they were trying to find each other in the current life. I haven't read the book. I'm just going by the summations that I read. But out of this drama that he witnessed with these two people, he extrapolated the power of love and its reality to last beyond circumstances and histories and lifetimes and events. So if we implant in our own selves that love is the only reality that we want to be part of, that nothing stands but by love. I mean, if you think about it, like, how did this building get built? Because of someone's love for their religion. How did this city come to be? Because of people's love for their lives to be placed here. It's a kind of a shift, you know, or maybe a revelation. I only can say it because I was riding a bus one day in Washington, D.C., looking at the street, and something yelled out of my head, "Nothing stands but by love." Is that true? Is that true? I went around asking people, do you think it's true that nothing stands but by love? Everyone said no. But I'm still buying it, okay? So the highest truth is, God is love. The highest reality of physics is beyond time and space is love. God is love, love is God. Know this and be blessed by it. Thank you. Amen. This is our time of spiritual communion. People ask, do we have communion in a unity service? We do, and this is it. Just as if we had passed a cup and a wafer, we are passing into a consciousness of being spiritually fed now, of drinking of the eternal life and partaking of the substance, the divine substance of the Christ. And so as we breathe deeply and relax in the deepest core of our being, relax, let go, and behold light. Light radiating through every level of our being. Light that is divine healing activity. Light that transforms all to love. Light that raises us out of the human condition and into the kingdom of heaven, right here, right now. Our statement for meditation is, in the light of prayer, I realize the infinite love of the Christ Spirit. And so let us vocalize that together. I'll say it one more time. In the light of prayer, I realize the infinite love of the Christ Spirit. Together, in the light of prayer, I realize the infinite love of the Christ Spirit. This is the seed that we now plant within, that grows to enfold our entire being. The mustard seed, tiny and mighty. The infinite love of the Christ Spirit. Feeling that now in the silence. In the beauty of this moment, we declare and anchor that this is our reality. And so it is. Amen.